Welcome, everyone. This is a presentation with Victor Lopez, NCA member. He's of an immigrant background. I'm Stephen Garvey, and I'm pleased to be here to listen to and have a dialogue with Victor. He's going to shed insights into what's going on in Canada from his perspective. And I might as well get right into it, Victor. There is a threat to freedom of speech in Canada. We're seeing it through extreme taxation. We're seeing it through the extreme mass immigration into Canada, the extreme multiculturalism, the tax on Christianity, the tax on the family unit, the tax on the individual, or tax on our values, our heritage, our way of life, tax on Euro-Canadians who founded and created this country, particularly Anglophone, Francophones. And you also talked about racism, how racism, labeling someone as racist, labeling them as some other derogatory term as a way to silence that person, to divide them, and to distract from other issues, the real issues. So this is something we take seriously at the National Citizens Alliance, Victor. And for example, we want to rescind M103. We want to rescind the hate speech laws because we think they're used to silence people. We want to rescind C16 on transgender identities, criminalizing people who don't say the right name of someone. Like that's totally absurd. So how do you feel about this, all this stuff going on?
Yeah, certainly freedom is diminishing because the left generally only wants freedom when it is for them. But if you express ideas that are contrary to the left's ideas, the left does not want that because they feel that is illegitimate, that you cannot disagree. You see, the problem with the left is the left feels they have the absolute truth, as written by Prophet Karl Marx in his holy book, The Capital, the communist book. So they feel they have the absolute truth and the road to paradise. So anybody who disagrees with that, at most is tolerated if they don't say anything too strong. But as long as you say something too strong, they do not engage in argument. They engage in insult. They try to discredit you by calling you, say, racist. They hope that the idea of racist or Nazi, they will bring to people's mind the idea of the Jews being massacred in the Holocaust, and therefore people will say, oh my God, I am a racist, then if I am a racist, I must not express my ideas. That's the idea. It's a very crude tactic, but intimidates a number of people. But people are waking up. It is absurd. It also shows that the left is not really democratic. If they were really democratic, they will engage in argument. They will destroy the arguments of the others by arguments, not by insults, by threatening, by all that. Because this is very clear to me. The left has a message and has a goal, and the goal is totalitarian. And they are engaged now in destroying the democratic society because they feel that is necessary to build the promised land of communism. Obviously, it's a crazy idea, but many leftists honestly believe it. Other maybe they're just using leftist ideas to become rich or to fool people or to gain power or whatever. But it's absolute. I mean, there is an attack on free speech. If somebody says something hateful, that should not be illegal. It will discredit by itself. It sounds as if people are scared that society may follow somebody who says something extreme. Well, if they are scared of that, that is not, to suppress speech is not going to solve it. If you don't want people to follow somebody who is a racist, even if he's a racist, then you shouldn't just delegitimize or make illegal the speech. But what we're talking about has nothing with race. When we're talking about controlling immigration, has nothing at all with race. I mean, to me, if you bring people from, say, India, which is a democratic country, with a good track record of tolerance, doesn't give me any problem. Now, if you bring people from countries which do not have democracies, some countries in Eastern Europe, especially Russia, China, most of the Arab world, Africa, most of Latin America, those people do not have a tradition of democracy, and therefore they bring the values that undermine democracy, not because they are bad, but just because they do not have the values. So this is not a white versus non-white fight. This is a fight between democratic ideas and anarchist, undemocratic, totalitarian ideas. This is the real fight. And people better wake up, because when they say the white, now the fashionable thing is to say white is bad. I mean, I couldn't see anything more absurd than that. What do you mean white is bad? The so-called white societies are the ones who have really set the rules and innovated the world more than anybody else. They brought democracy, they brought science, they brought freedom of speech, they brought rule of law, they brought all the international institutions. What is this baloney that somehow white is wrong? But they want to fool people. They want to make people feel that because some Europeans or Anglo-Europeans or somebody made some things that were terrible, they want to put everybody in the same basket. I mean, I could not see anything more irrational than that. So we have to fight that, because the fight is, this one is to the end. Here we are engaged in the final fight. The left has seen that people are waking up and trying to defend their countries and their culture, and they sense that this is the final fight. If they don't win this fight, they'll go the way of the Berlin Wall. They will topple. So they want to win it at any cost. This is why they accuse Trump of being a Nazi. I mean, it's absurd. I mean, you can accuse Trump of being gross in some of his expressions, of being arrogant. All that I could agree with. But don't call him a Nazi.
Well,
there is nothing in his record.
We're called that.
Yeah, anybody who disagrees with the left is called that. If you disagree with any of the things they propose, they say you're a racist, you are a bigot, you are this, you are that, and which is a totally irrational message. But they hope that it resonates with the guilt feelings of people, and therefore they hope to paralyze people, and that way they won't fight and they'll roll over. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. And I really am fed up with not just, let's say, the lay left, but the church left is just as bad. I mean, the church left is just, they hate themselves. The Catholic Church now, I mean, it's just, to me, it's just disgusting to see that guy. He's preoccupied with all kinds of international political issues, instead of cleaning up the church, which is all messed up with people who shouldn't be there. So we have a problem here. We have the globalists, we have the international left, which sometimes could be Christian, could be Jewish, could be Protestant, could be atheists. And between all those groups, they're really bent. Some don't care, the globalists don't care, and the others, they really feel bad about our civilization. You know, they feel bad about who they are. This is why the leftist Christians don't go to church much. The leftist Jews don't go to synagogue much. You know, they really almost exited their own backgrounds, and they are engaged in this mad fight to upend society. And if people read a little bit about communism, they will see that in the communist book it is written, you have to destroy society to create the perfect communist society. And this is why all those outrageous things you hear now on TV, on radio, from the leftists, they are absurd, but they hope they will resonate to tear society down. This is their hope. But as I say, we are waking up.
Yeah. And who are these globalists?
The globalists, I think some of the globalists are economic globalists who only care about making money wherever and by any method. And these guys, they are some international corporations. You know, you have Apple, you have people like that. They are not really interested in what happens to the citizens of the workers in the U.S. They're only interested in maximizing profit for shareholders at any cost. So those people, if they have to ship 1 million jobs to China or Taiwan or any other place, they'll ship them because their objective is just maximize profit. Depress wages as much as possible and maximize profit. It's crazy because in the end it will destroy the societies that made them great. I mean, Apple is a great company, but if they keep making everything away from the US, the Americans are not going to have money to buy the things that they make somewhere else. So we have, on the one hand, in my opinion, we have the economic globalists. And then we have the social globalists, those people who feel that we have to create a universal communist society where all the same, and they only talk about diversity to destroy the cultures that are great. They don't talk about diversity in the world. In the world, they do not want diverse cultures. They do not want English culture, German culture, Japanese culture, or any other culture. They want a whole mass of everybody thinking the same along leftist lines. But because they want to destroy the best cultures the world has right now, they want to bring all sorts of people who have no understanding of how these countries became great. And I do not care if a Muslim comes in. It's fine with me. But we have to make sure that that Muslim, that Christian, that Buddhist, he understands democracy, he understands freedom, and he assimilates those concepts so he can compatibilize being a Muslim with being a profound Democrat. And the same for anybody else. So we have to screen immigration. I don't care where it comes from. If it comes from Sweden or Switzerland. Logically, if they come from Sweden or Switzerland, are less likely to create problems for democracy here because those countries are also democratic. Although you still have to screen everybody. But people from countries with a proven track record of disaster, of oppression, of dictatorship, those have to be screened carefully. I mean, it's like you have to pass a behavioral exam. We have to know in depth your attitudes, like if you were being interviewed for a job. We want a citizen that we all know that is going to integrate here. He prays to his God. I don't care about that, or he has no God. But he has to understand freedom of speech, respect public discourse, separation of powers, and on and on and on. And all this stuff is going down the drain if we don't fight. The left, which to some extent runs lots of the establishment in places like Canada and the States, you can see how they are fighting by any tool they can to discredit the whole system if the system has elected somebody who is not like them. So we really have to engage ordinary citizens because democracy does not grow on trees. Democracy comes out of the minds of people who have the values that generate democracy. And believe me, it's a minority in the world.
Yeah, excellent points, Victor. And as you know, we were shut down in Dartmouth, and we were shut down in Halifax. And just to let everyone know, we're going to be holding our national convention outside of Halifax on November 17th, everyone. So we're going to be announcing that next week, Saturday, November 17th, at a private venue. So, and then we're going to have a rally on the Sunday. So I guess we'll see what kind of opposition we have, Victor, for that. But we're full steam ahead. And could you, you know, these globalists, we were discussing last week about them, and you were saying they have no allegiance to Canada.
No, they don't have allegiance to anybody. And in a way, especially I think this happens more, you see, within the so-called capitalist world, the Anglo-European capitalist world, you have almost like two tendencies. In one, you have the Anglo tendency, Anglo-American, Canadian, let's call it, for lack of a better word, the Anglo-Saxon tendency, and you have the continental North European. The North American capitalism has deteriorated badly, and their management skills are poor to compete globally. This is why they push to move their factories away. You see, when you are not able to manage a company and be competitive with paying high wages, you say, what the hell, I don't want this. I just want to be able to make money. I don't want to re-examine how I manage. But if you look, for example, at German companies and American companies, German companies in general, they are far better managed. Why are they better managed? They have a better training system and they look for the long term. And North American managers, they are products of Harvard and universities like that. They think they are very well prepared, but they're only prepared to look at the bottom line short term. This is why you have the amazing fact that the country that supposedly has the better management schools has an industry which is not competitive. You see, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Lexus, they kill Cadillac and they kill Lincoln in their own market. And now they have factories in the States. And you have factories in the States by BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Toyota, Honda, which are far more productive than the factories in the US run by Ford and run by GM. If you look at the American car market, American car companies, they don't make many cars. They only live on trucks because people still like trucks, and the foreign companies haven't gotten into trucks yet. But eventually they will, because American car companies are very poorly managed. Everything is next quarter. How do the shares look next quarter? When you go to a place like Germany, and I know this because I study these things, when you go into a place like Germany, they don't look at the next quarter, they look in the next 10 years. Where are we going to be in the next 10 years, the next 15 years? So that means that when they have to make an investment decision, let's say Mercedes-Benz can make a long-term commitment to a new research project, which would be develop a new engine. GM or Chrysler or Ford, they cannot do that because they're prisoners to Wall Street. They have to show a benefit next quarter. Why do they have to show a benefit? Because otherwise the shareholders sell the shares and go to somewhere else, because the shareholders are also thinking short term. And also the managers of the companies, their money, they made their money as a function of the short-term performance of the company. So if an American manager has to say, oh, I should invest $20 million to develop a new engine which will come into the market 15 years from now, they say, the hell with this, I'm not going to be here. And this is why American companies in the car industry and many other industries have fallen behind. It's totally shameful. So these globalists, they are destroying their own societies, but through incompetence in many cases. American managers, not all of them, God bless it, there's many good American companies, but many American industrial companies are not competitive because they are poorly managed. They fell behind in technology, they fell behind in almost everything. So an easy way to make profits was to ship the factories away. But if you go to Germany, you will see that they do not ship as many factories away. They keep making most of the car and most of the components in Germany. The result, you wouldn't believe this, Stephen, the labor costs in Germany are about twice as high as in the US. And they still manage to export far more than the US. So there is this concern about immigration and many other things. But a bigger, longer-term concern, in my view, is North American management. And Canadian management is very much like American management. And if we don't fix that, I don't care how many times we reduce taxes and how many other things we do, because we don't have workers which are properly trained, and we don't have managers which are properly trained. The result is products which are not competitive because they have lower quality, and they are well put together and less innovative. It's a terrible problem. The globalists, in the English-speaking world especially, they are destroying their own countries. And we mustn't allow to do that, because I came to Canada, I came to an English-speaking country, French too, but I landed in the English part in Ontario. I came here because you could see that English-speaking societies were fairly well-run societies. This is what attracted us to come here. Otherwise, I'll go somewhere else. And I see this is being lost. I see this is, I came to Canada in 1970, and I see the whole principle of freedom, of democracy, even of market competition, is going slowly down the tubes. We have fewer and fewer companies controlling more and more on the market, and they just see people as consumers. You know, we're just machines to extract money from us, and they don't care about anything else. They don't even care long term about their companies. So this has many angles, and we have to fight in many fronts.
Yeah, it's an interesting point about the globalists. A bit more insight on that, because we, some of these people that you mentioned, I guess they're on the left. They don't have to be. They could be in the center or whatever, but the globalists are the ones really in control, aren't they? Right now?
Yes. Well, I don't think they're in control, because otherwise you and I wouldn't be speaking, right? But they want to exert control. And we also have the social globalists, those mostly, basically the left, who dream of a paradise, the promised land of communism all over the world, and everybody will be happy. But we know how that turned out in the Soviet Union, and even the Chinese, they said, the hell with this. We want some capitalism here too. Sadly, the Chinese nation has not assimilated democracy yet, and that's why they're a bit scary, for us.
Yeah.
So we have to fight in many fronts, because they fight in many fronts.
I see. Is your audio on at your end?
Yes. Can you hear me? I hear you.
No, but do you have this playing at your end?
Do I have what?
You shouldn't. I think you have this playing at your end.
What thing playing?
The live on your computer.
Yes.
Because I can hear myself speak when you're talking.
Oh, I haven't done anything.
All right. Okay. So we can continue here. That's an interesting point. Is there anything you want to say in closing on this, Victor?
Well, that people have to wake up, and if they want their children and their children's children to have a democratic, stable society run by laws and not run by cliques and by globalists and people like that who don't care about their society, people have to show that through the vote. And they cannot be intimidated. They have to vote the way that is necessary to preserve what Canada is.
Exactly. And you identified two forces in Canada. There's like kind of like a socialist, Marxist, communist force at play. Yeah. And you said there's globalists.
Yeah. Let me make a point, Stephen, about the Marxist leftist forces. You have the Marxists, the extreme ones, which are on the streets, and don't let you speak. Those are one. But the other group is the group who are in the institutions, who are reasonable people, nice people, but they honestly believe it that they have to use their power within the official institutions and the media to turn the country around, because they really believe in the end that a Marxist society is possible. Most of these people are not bad people. They just believe that paradise is possible. Obviously, to me, it's absurd. It's not possible. The only paradise we can create is a reasonable society with many defects and hopefully with more virtues. But these people are in academia, in the media. You read them in the papers, you see them in the CDC, they're all over the place. Yeah. They're well-meaning, But in my opinion, they're totally misguided, because it's not possible to create a society that the left envisions. Yeah. And maybe at some point I will read on camera what is the goal of communism, and it's paradise. So if you believe that paradise is possible, then great. Most people, I think, they know enough about humans to know that paradise is not possible on earth. All we can aspire to is to have decent societies.
Also, these people are fanatical, and
yes, they are.
You could argue that they're borderline fascists. They have fascist tendencies.
Well, they are fanatical because they are convinced they have the absolute truth. This is what makes them fanatical.
Right.
Some of them are fanatical aggressive, and some of them are fanatical not physically aggressive, but they're just as convinced. They know that the book of Marx is the holy book, and they only have to follow that at whatever cost.
Yeah, and some of them are following the globalist book now too.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Universal values. People have a right to come here. Right? We're just one big global community.
Yeah, it's absurd.
Right? There's no borders. There shouldn't be any borders. Right? So this is another book that's being fed by the government, right? And the media.
Yeah.
Right? There's people suffering in Africa. We have to forget our people, the ones in need. We got to help those people, right?
But in fact, we do not help the people in Africa. If we want to help the people in Africa, we should put our foot down and tell those dictators, you better change your laws here, you better set up a proper country. What we're doing now by saying, oh, let them come here, maybe 100,000 come here, but 100 million stay there, so to save 100,000, we continue perpetuating the hell they live on the other 100 million. It's immoral. It's a disgrace. It's about time that those countries which have not had ever democracy, it's about time democracy start to be aggressive and push for that. Because right now, people are dying in many of the countries where the refugees come from because we are not doing anything. Because we're just saying, oh, let's open the borders. No, we have to say, let's go there. And just like we rescue the Jews from the Nazis and many others, we have to rescue these people who are being exploited, raped, tortured, imprisoned. I mean, they're treated worse than cattle in most of the world. There is only about 25 or 30 countries where you can say in the world people have rights. All these countries people come from, Ethiopia, Syria, most of the Muslim world, most of Africa, most of South America, they just escape because that is hell. So it makes no sense to encourage them to come here. What it makes sense is to help them overthrow the disgraceful regimes they have. If we want to be moral, that's what we should do. We have to change the countries where they come from. This is like the Chinese proverb. If you teach a person, if you give a person a fish, he or she eats for a day. If you teach the person how to fish, he or she eats for the rest of their life. Here's the same way. If you accept refugees, you benefit a few refugees, and hell stays on there in the place where they come from. If you change the place where they come from, some of them will still come here, but they have a dignified life like the one we have here. We have to, this is a cultural battle. We have to spread the ideas of democracy all over. It will take a long time, just like it took in Europe. You remember in Europe, democracy is not more than a few centuries old. But the Africans, the South Americans, the Asians, they are all capable of democracy. But we have to help the few, the minority, who want to establish it, and that now they're being slaughtered as we talk. Right now they're being slaughtered. And the distracting fight here, and those dictators are very happy to see how the West fights among itself while they continue doing whatever they want. It's a disgrace, immoral.
Yeah, fair enough. But, we hold the position, Victor, that we're going to help our people first.
Of course.
Barring extreme crisis.
Yeah.
Like we could, like in South Africa, we view what's happening to those farmers there.
Absolutely.
A serious crisis. Christians are still being persecuted throughout the Middle East.
Yeah.
So that's something that's got our attention. But we got to look after our people first. Another thing too, we have to be very careful, Victor, with nation building. You know, a lot of times nation building was used to exploit a country. They come in and they control the government. They exploit the resources. So we don't want it. We don't think we should be going into countries and exploiting them that way. And that if they're open to our ideas, because we got a lot of issues in our country, Victor, we need to take care of our backyard before before the idea of helping others. Like, look at our democracy. You can't even call it a democracy. It's top down. These establishment parties are just globalist puppets. They're all strained to special interests, lobbyists, globalist interests throughout the world. Our people are coming second, last, right? Look at the policies. Our veterans are on the sleep. Our seniors, many of them are in poverty. Many Canadians are consumed with debt.
Yep.
Over a quarter of the population now is in economic trouble. Did you know that?
Yeah,
so this is very concerning. So we have a lot of issues in our country that we need to take care of. Our democracy, you can't even call it a democracy because there's a monopoly on power. Yeah. All these parties are just part of a conglomerate. They're all just part of they're just different sides of the same entity. And that's what's happening. Most of these politicians are career politicians. They're looking after themselves. They're serving the party. They're serving the lobbyists. They're serving the globalist interests. Right? That's what's happening. Yep. So we have a crisis in our country on many fronts.
Yeah.
So, but this mass immigration is harming those countries and harming our own country. Because a lot of these countries are overpopulated. Yet we're like a release valve. We're taking them in. We're actually brain draining, which is making those countries worse off and encouraging more population. So the whole thing is upside down.
Yep. Yeah, it is upside down.
And now we're getting in trouble with the mass immigration. Ethnic enclaves are growing. Violence is growing. In Canada, we can see that in Toronto, the gun attacks are on the increase.
Yes, and, because
there's more conflict in society, especially as ethnic enclaves grow, because it's just dividing everyone. And it's like what you said, the globalists, they want people to be divided, but again, they're gonna suck all the value out, aren't they? And you said they're just gonna be consumers, taxpayers? That's what you were kind of implying, weren't you?
Yeah. Well, and also going back a little bit to the immigration thing, you see, it's not that the immigrants come here that they came, say, when I came, that we were happy to be accepted into the country. No, the left indoctrinates the immigrants into saying, your country is a mess because of the West. If it wasn't because of the West, you will be a great country. So the immigrants that come here, they come with this crazy idea that somehow we owe them something. And of course, they will never question their ideas. They will never consider that their countries are a mess, mostly because the ideas in those societies are not suitable to create prosperous countries yet. So it's a very dangerous thing what's going on. You know, we're bringing in people and we're telling them, you are good, we're bad. This is absurd.
Yes.
I mean, I understand, like you say, we have to help people which they are in dire straits. We have to help them, and that Canada always did. But what is going on goes beyond that. They want to use that to change this society. So what will happen? We'll end up like a third world country, because what are these mass immigrants are going to do if they don't go through an adaptation process? And they cannot go through an adaptation process because they come in and they are told, you are better than the Canadians.
Yeah, exactly.
Absurd.
So this
Crazy.
is, yeah, this is undermining our society, everyone. It's called cultural relativism. It's almost value relativism. Everything is relative. Everything is equal. It doesn't make sense, everyone. And this is what's happening to our country. But it goes beyond that, because they say Euro-Canadians are bad. Our history is bad. Christianity is bad. Right?
Yeah, but they're not saying, they're not saying, Stephen, they're not saying Euro-Canadians are bad. They're saying that because they want to play a little bit the race card. But what they're really saying, which is the dangerous stuff, is the ideas of Euro-Canadians, of the people who set up this country and created this prosperous democracy under the rule of law. This is a bad country. It's a bad country.
Exactly.
And it has to be destroyed to create socialism in a communist country.
Well, globalist
this is the
country.
problem.
Globalist country too.
Well, a mess, because
Yeah.
the globalists, when the whole world is a mess, they will stop making money too. But they want to make more money now. So if making more money now means the States or Canada stay up, they don't care. They just move somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. And these are the people that are governing our country, everyone. It's very concerning, and you know, we encourage you to donate to the National Citizens Alliance so we can replace these sellouts, these globalists, these socialists, Marxists, whatever they are, and you know, become a member. Run in 2019. You know, the country's in a crisis right now, Victor.
Yeah.
And
Can I say something,
sure.
Stephen?
Go ahead.
And those of you who are watching, in your family, in your neighborhood, with anybody you know, do not hesitate to engage in argument and fight the political correctness BS. Do not hesitate. You have to go on the offensive verbally. You can win the argument. You know, the people assume that the left has the right, is on the right. No, you are on the right, but you have to speak up. You have to neutralize comments that assume and they try to shame you into silence. You know, when you are at a meeting or at a meal and somebody says something about immigration and you say, oh, I think it's excessive, and people may look at you, oh, what do you mean? So you should say, yes, I mean that. I think it's excessive. I think we have to control it. I think we have to make sure that immigrants come here and adapt and assimilate. In private, they can pray to whatever God they want. They can be atheists or do anything they want. Mm-hmm. But they have to conform to the norms of this society, and they have to assimilate values. But this has to be fought in every living room, in every gymnasium, in every school, because otherwise they just want people to be silenced. Look at this girl that said something, some issue with Wilfrid Laurier University. I mean, they almost destroyed her life. Thank God that somebody stood up and she had a tape of what happened and it could be turned around. So this cannot be won just by one or two people fighting here or there. Every one of us who believes in these things have to fight it verbally, peacefully, but unflinchingly. It's like Churchill said against the Nazis. We'll find them in the streets, we'll find them on the beaches, we'll find them everywhere. But verbally, you'll have to find them in the schools, in the countryside, in games, anywhere where people voice comments that they try to silence you, that they believe they are in the absolute right. You have to say, no, stop. This is your opinion. I have a different one, and it's just as valid as yours. And I'm not a racist for saying it.
Yeah, you know, good point. That's free speech, everyone. And you need to decide what type of society you want to live in. Do you want to live in a tyranny, a society which pushes down free speech, that condemns people for having different points of view? Or do you want to live in a society where freedom flourishes and we accept the differences as long as people are not being harmed in the process? So
absolutely.
And that's what we got to decide, because right now we're heading down a path of tyranny through a combination of these forces at play. We got the socialist Marxists, anarchists almost at play. We got the globalists who are just out for money and profit, who don't care about Canada. And then we have also these political entities, Victor, are just string to them.
Yeah.
They're bought and sold.
Yeah.
They're bought and sold. And that's what's going on to our country, everyone. And that's why we formed the NCA as a political force that can challenge the status quo of what's going on. Because if we don't, things are going to get very nasty here. Very nasty. And we're going to lose our rights, our values. You can see it happening every day. And you made a really good point in your last presentation, Victor. It was the Francophone, Anglophones who brought the values of Canada, our institutions, our democracy, of our legal system, and on and on. But if we replace those people with people who do not share those values, then all those institutions will eventually collapse. That's what you see, don't you, Victor, coming?
Absolutely. Absolutely. A democracy functions if the will of the voter prevails. It cannot function if the strategy now is that the voters cannot speak, there cannot be free speech, there is no engagement anywhere. In the universities, everybody is almost silenced. Mm-hmm. That's anti-democratic. We are the ones who defend democracy. I don't mind that a communist stands up in a soapbox in any park and defends communists, the great idea. I think that should be allowed. The same way people who are concerned about immigration or other issues have to be allowed. Because if we don't do that, democracy will die. Yeah. And if democracy dies, we are back into the Middle Ages.
Yeah, good point, everyone. So, we're really at a fork in the road in this country, our country, and you're hearing it now from Victor, who's an immigrant member of the National Citizens Alliance. He immigrated here in 1970, and his wife is immigrant. He's a full-on immigrant family, and he's very concerned at what he sees happening to our country. And do you have any closing remarks, Victor, today?
No, except to say that people, like I was saying before, your argument is as valuable as your vote, because when you defend these ideas, you help persuade others to follow them, to understand what is going on. So it's not just enough to wait at voting time. You have to help to create through social media, through wherever you are, an opinion, a wave, a tsunami of ideas that says, damn it, democracy has to put its foot down. Democrats have to put their feet down. They have to say, enough of this. We want to go back to free speech. We don't want the truth, in quotation marks, monopolized by left-wing media or other people like that. We have to speak, but every one of you who's watching have to speak up. You have to speak speak up in your environment and encourage others that you know to do the same thing. So this spreads like when you throw a stone in a small pond and the waves spread sideways. You can do the same. You could be a little stone, mm-hmm. but you're in your environment, in your family, your neighborhood. You have to create the movement to win this battle, which is, I am convinced, is a fight to the death for the survival of democracy as we understand it.
And that means a fight for survival of our country, because without democracy, what do we have?
Absolutely.
Right? This will be just an absolute tyranny, totalitarian society, everyone. So please take this very seriously. Talk it over with your family members and friends. But Canada is in crisis right now. And our democratic institutions are being eroded every day, partly connected to the mass immigration of people coming in who do not share our values, coupled with replacing Euro-Canadians. Actually organized replacement of the people who founded our country. This doesn't make sense. This is something we don't support at the National Citizens Alliance. So please support us. We rely on donations. If you want us to get our message out, we need money to get our message out. We also need volunteers, members, paid members, and people running in 2019. And so just think about that. If you support our agenda, please get on board. There's also a GoFundMe going on. One of our members in South Calgary has kindly offered to allow us to put up a 44-foot billboard sign on their property on a major highway, and it reaches 30 to 40,000 commuters a day. So we're looking to raise money for that, and so thank you. Hopefully this message resonated with you. We will be looking at your comments following the video and responding to them accordingly, and we want to thank you for tuning in. And I should mention, I think Portia, another immigrant member, is going to be coming on in a couple hours live as well. So she'll just build off what Victor said today. And I want to thank you, Victor, for coming on today and sharing your insights. And it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. It's common sense, and it's the real thing. And so please, everyone, take this very seriously. And we want to wish you a good day. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah.
And let's get moving.
Yes.